Bring in show music, please.
This is Squawk Pod from CNBC. On today's episode, shopping season begins. Maybe the malls aren't as busy as they've been in the past, but online is abuzz with live shopping akin to, well, years past.
This is QVC. It works.
That's Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V. The social media and marketing expert says influencers are taking their cut this holiday.
There are unbelievable amounts of people making over $1 million a month already on TikTok live shopping.
And for some who've already made their millions and billions and trillions, they're not keeping it all. Robert Frank says, don't worry. Warren Buffett and Bill Gates warned their families about charitable giving.
Look, tell your kids about the will and then have that discussion while you're alive.
And Dr. Scott Gottlieb is raising his concerns about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the president-elect's pick for Health and Human Services.
I don't think the president wants to see a resurgence of measles, wants to see a resurgence of whooping cough in this country. God forbid we have cases of polio in this country. He does not want to see that. I think he understood the importance of the childhood immunization schedule.
All that, plus the FTC's probe into Microsoft and Uber, and much more. I'm CNBC producer Zach Vallese. It's Friday, November 29th, Black Friday, 2024. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Black Friday. We hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Robert Frank and Steve Liesman. Joe and Andrew are off today. We've got everything under control here in the house, and I'm really glad to see both of you guys this morning.
Great to be here.
I hope you guys had
Friday.
I hope you guys had great Thanksgiving holidays.
A little bit of a tryptophan hangover, but
I was going to say, that was nice when you go out drinking and you feel the next day. I'm sort of feeling the food the next day.
That's all right. This next story is really pretty important, I think. Came as a bit of a surprise, at least on the timing on some of this stuff, too.
I guess I'm supposed to read it then.
There you go.
Thank you, Becky. That's a great setup. We are watching shares of Microsoft this morning after word that the FTC is launching an antitrust investigation into the company. Broke over the weekend. Megan Casella joins us now with a surprising Thanksgiving, what do you call it, Microsoft FTC raid. No, it's not a raid yet.
A Thanksgiving surprise. That's right, Steve. Good morning. A source confirming to CNBC late Wednesday, just before the holiday, that the FTC is opening a wide-ranging probe into Microsoft, looking at whether the company is violating antitrust law in a number of different aspects. Its software licensing, its cloud computing, cybersecurity programs, and AI products. And one focus here is whether Microsoft uses its licensing terms and its market power to keep customers sort of locked in to its Azure cloud service and then to prevent them from moving their data elsewhere. Shares down just about 0.5% in pre-market since Wednesday's close. The FTC has reportedly, guys, been looking informally into Microsoft for more than a year, but now they've sent the company a detailed request for information. That's why we're learning about it now. And this comes, of course, just a couple of months before FTC Chair Lina Khan is almost certainly out of office, making this sort of a swan song or a parting shot for her as she caps off her term that's been so focused on big tech. We don't know yet who Trump will want to lead that agency. And while there are some populist tendencies in common between Trump and Khan and J.D. Vance, it's just not clear what would happen to the investigation when Trump does take office in January. So lots of questions there and lots still to watch as this case moves forward. Guys.
Megan, I have so many questions, Megan. But first of all, I'm having deja vu all over again. Didn't we do this once, I don't know, a decade ago or more?
No, in the 90s.
In the 90s? Was it that?
It's been a while.
When did we last say Microsoft was using its licensing power to, do you remember, Megan, did we able to report, you don't remember because you're too young, but do you remember, when did this last happen?
I don't remember it. It was 25 years ago, Steve. So not quite 10 years ago, but 25 years ago that they last looked into Microsoft. And there are suggestions that that case, that investigation was what allowed Google and others to sort of grow bigger since it was so long ago. Now, though, in recent years, Microsoft has sort of been left out as the FTC and others have gone after so many big tech companies until about 2 years ago. We saw the European Commission do this summer, looking into Microsoft and Azure Cloud. at that point. And then because Microsoft has had some security breaches in the last few months, that sort of paved the way for some of these probes to move forward, it looks like.
The security breaches, I mean, this is a huge deal because it affected the government in lots of ways, and I think it kicked things up and stirred things up there. I would guess that some of the OpenAI and AI issues probably stirred things up too. If you go back a year ago with all the splits that happened with OpenAI, how Microsoft came in at that point, that stirred up a lot of questions too. Microsoft, by the way, has been pretty phenomenal in this century, in the last 24 years, in terms of how it's worked with Washington. If you think of Brad Smith and how he goes down to Washington, they learned from what happened in the 1990s that they did not want to, give the Heisman basically to the government, because that gets you in a lot of trouble. You're never going to win when the government wants information. So they have been very cooperative in all of these things since then. I think the big question is what happens under a Trump administration. But a Trump administration is what started lots of these investigations into the big tech companies to begin with. So just because the Trump administration is going to be more anti-regulatory, looking at ways to strip down regulatory actions, I don't know if that holds when it comes to some of the big tech companies. What do you think, Megan?
That's exactly right. That there's sort of some strange bedfellows here, that this Trump White House in the first term, and we expect it again in the second term, to be sort of tough on big tech. I think you guys read the headline earlier of Mark Zuckerberg being down in Mar-a-Lago. I think a lot of these CEOs recognize that and are trying to get out ahead of it and trying to do what they can. You're right that Brad Smith is here all the time, and having that savviness of being able to go to the White House, to go to the Hill, putting yourself and your executives in front of these policymakers goes a really long way. I think it'll be really, really interesting to see who goes atop the FTC. Remember, in that brief period when Matt Gaetz was the Attorney General nominee, the pro-Lena Khan crowd was actually really pleased with that pick for FTC reasons, for antitrust reasons. He'd been supportive of her. You remember the conservative discussion and the fact that we don't know the same about Pam Bondi, which means it raises more questions, I would say, about who gets the FTC nod.
I'm interested in this idea that Microsoft, in doing what is best for the consumer, for me personally, bundling stuff together so everything works seamlessly, that's what gets it. If I'm reading this right, Megan, I may be reading this wrong, but it sounded like it's the idea of putting all that stuff together to work seamlessly. As a consumer of tech, and I'm a major consumer of tech here, the fact that all this stuff works together helps me, but this is what gets into trouble with the government. Unless
the cybersecurity stuff is weak and they think you should have stronger offerings.
But that's not a reason to break it up.
This is part of the reason that the government's investigation kicked into higher gear.
Kicked into, but it's not, I'm saying from FTC, I don't know, Megan, if you have a comment on that. Is that right, that it's the bundling of these things together that is the government's concern here?
Very likely. So we don't have that many tea leaves to read yet. We're going to have to wait to hear more from the FTC. We do know what happened in Europe, though, was it was about bundling. It was about the fact that their Microsoft Teams was coming alongside Microsoft Outlook and Office and all of their other programs. And then other competitors like Slack, for example, or maybe Zoom, couldn't compete as well because they were all coming together, just like you say, Steve. So it is difficult to know. One of the things that companies love so much about Microsoft is the integration there. And so is the bundling then also something worth breaking up? That's, I think, a big part of what this investigation at least is likely to hinge on.
Megan, thank you very much. Great reporting. Sorry it ruined your holiday.
Also, it's also worth noting that stock is only down 0.49% this morning. Yeah. It's up 14% of the year. So either investors aren't concerned about it, they think that the new Trump administration is going to ameliorate this in some way, or they just think that Microsoft has a strong case. So it's interesting. From an investor point of view, it doesn't seem to be.
It's still early days. I mean, they're just seeking information and coming at it, so we don't even know if they bring something, what happens with any of this stuff, and it is at this transition period between.
I know we have to move on, but one of the theories of the case here is that some of the pricing and inflation we had is a result of monopolies that were out there, or a lack of competition in pricing, and that has been a, what do you call it, a modus operandi of the Biden administration. And then to your question, Becky, the question is, what is the theory of the case of the Trump administration?
Yeah, and the new Trump administration tech folks, whether you're talking about Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, who has a lot of influence through his surrogates, or J.D. Vance, they are small tech. They are anti-big tech. So I think when you talk about
Elon Musk is also very open AI, anti-open AI.
That's right.
Which is
but they're all anti-Microsoft, they're anti-Google, they're anti-Amazon. So I think it's hard to just say pro-business, because even within tech, you're looking at this split. So,
and by the way, I don't know if you saw the video. Elon Musk and May Musk, at least, were at the table with Donald Trump, Barron Trump, and Melania Trump at Thanksgiving down at Mar-a-Lago, too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing is that what they do is they lock you in with these fees for software.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Back in the day, you would just buy $90 for whatever.
That's right.
Now
They all come together. Yeah.
you just get these credit card
Recurring
announcements
fees.
that they just billed you for $3 a month or something like
Much
that.
more profitable.
Forever. Right,
In
exactly.
perpetuity.
About them. Speaking of regulation, separately, the FTC looking into whether Uber violated consumer protection laws with its Uber One subscription service. That program gives discounts on rides and delivery orders in exchange for an annual fee. The FTC is investigating the enrollment and the cancellation process of that program. It has recently brought lawsuits against companies including Amazon and Adobe for allegedly making it too difficult, as Steve just mentioned, to cancel those subscriptions.
Yes.
Now, in a statement to CNBC, Uber said the Uber One cancellation process follows both the letter and the spirit of the law. Uber One members can easily cancel their membership in the app. In fact, the majority of those cancellations take 20 seconds or less. Yeah, for you, Dara. We will continue to answer any questions the FTC may have about our cancellation policies. The FTC probes do not always lead to enforcement action.
You know what happened to me in the last couple of weeks? My credit card, there was some fraud activity on it. Canceled it. The best benefit out of it, it's a pain to go back and
all
put
the
your card in
subscriptions
everything.
you didn't realize.
But all the subscriptions
yeah.
I didn't realize I had or that I wanted to cancel and couldn't, they're all gone. They're all contacting me, trying to get me to put my new.
Well,
credit
now
card
there are these
information
companies that are doing a brisk business in basically showing you what your subscriptions are, canceling the ones that haven't been activated. So now there's the business showing you all the subscriptions, and that's a subscription business too.
Yeah, it's much easier to just cancel your credit card.
That's right.
And
that you don't really want
falls
anymore.
by the wayside.
On my story list for the last several years has been the dumb economy. All the subscriptions we have that we don't use. And I think people actually, that's part of their business plan.
Well, at the box office, Disney's Moana 2 dominated in its Wednesday debut, racking up $57.5 million in North American ticket sales. It's projected to bring in at least $175 million over its first 5 days in the theaters. That would make it the biggest Thanksgiving haul of all time, overtaking Frozen 2's record of $125 million. Saw a bad review in Variety, but I'll tell you what, that's not going to stop a single family from going to see this with kids who are looking for new content. In the meantime, Universal's Wicked brought in $20.4 million on Wednesday, and it is expected to bring in $97 million over this 5-day holiday period. And then you've got Gladiator 2, which brought in $6.6 million on Wednesday and is tracking for a 5-day haul of $40 million.
Are we going back to the theaters?
Yeah, I've got tickets to Gladiator today. We're going to Moana 2 on Saturday, maybe Wicked on Sunday.
So they were talking about Glickid or Wadiator, whatever. But
how about you, Robert? Are you going back to the theater?
No. It's interesting how much we talk about movies, but if you look at, there was an interesting stat. Movies this year will be about $10 billion. Video games will be about $100 billion.
That's a fair point.
So it's look, these are great movies. I'd love to see all of them, but it's such a shrinking and small part of the economy.
There's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
I have personally enjoyed going to the theater by myself and having the theater almost completely empty. That has been something that has been a phenomenon.
Would you go in the mornings or?
No. Sometimes in the middle of the week or something like that.
I'm on assignment.
Exactly. Just to get out of the house when you work at home.
Doesn't matter what's playing.
Exactly.
Robert, you've been taking a closer look at charitable giving by some of the world's richest people. What are you finding?
Well, Becky, this started with that letter that you read earlier in the week from Warren Buffett, and that was because he was announcing that he's giving another $1.1 billion to his family foundations. Now, he's already given away $60 billion, which, according to Forbes, makes him the biggest giver in dollar terms of all time, and he's just getting started. His plan is to give away all of his Berkshire shares to his 2 sons and daughter to distribute to charity. He has given away more than half of his shares since 2006. So if Warren Buffett had never given any shares to charity, he would today be the richest man in the world, worth over $335 billion. That would top Elon Musk by about $10 billion. By the way, if Bill Gates hadn't sold or given away a single share of Microsoft after the IPO, he would be the world's first trillionaire today, worth $1.4 trillion, equal to 4 Elon Musk. Buffett saying in his letter, "In no way did I or anyone else dream of the fortunes that have become attainable in America during the last few decades. It has been mind-blowing, beyond the imaginations of Ford, Carnegie, Morgan, or even Rockefeller. Billions have become the new millions." Now the challenge for Buffett and his children will be in dispersing that money, $150 billion during their lifetimes. Now, for more on how the wealthy are giving, investing, and spending their money, you can check out my newsletter, Inside Wealth. That's cnbc.com/InsideWealth. And I have what I said were the 4 rules of giving from that Buffett letter, which, interestingly, he said parents should read their will to their children while the parents are still alive. And I've talked to a lot of wealth management firms and private banks that said a lot of wealthy clients saw that Buffett letter and are now calling their advisors saying, should we do this? And it is a very good idea to do it. Maybe not everything in the will all at once, maybe a longer conversation over years in which you dribble out some of it. But
I think he's also said he did this with his adult children. Didn't start when they were young.
Absolutely.
It's not something you do when the kids are younger, but when they're older and you have faith in what they're doing. And his point has been, you don't want to leave this for them to be surprised when you're gone and then have resentments or not understand or have anyone be able to explain to them why you're doing these things.
We've all seen the movies, and it's true, where the attorney reads the will and one sibling's upset. Why did dad or mom give it to them? And his point is he has done this with his children as they're adults over a long period, and he's made changes to his will as a result of that. So it's helped both ways, but it was a really wise piece of advice that is already making a huge impact, as he always does, on wealthy. And we're looking at $84 trillion that's going to pass from older generations to younger generations. So this is a huge deal among the wealthy. The number one issue right now is not how much money am I going to make over the next 10 years, is how do I transfer that to my kids? How do I raise my kids in a way that's not going to make them spoiled? And Warren Buffett has contributed to that debate a lot by telling, look, tell your kids about the will and then have that discussion while you're alive. Don't save it for later.
And by the way, did not give a whole lot of money, relatively speaking, to his kids with this. His late wife, Susan Buffett, had given each of them $10 million when she passed away. That was the first large sum of money they ever got. And they are giving away $150 billion. They're going to be responsible for that. But
it's a lot.
His point was, give them, when they were younger, he and Susie Buffett thought that they wanted to give their kids enough that they
could do anything, not so much that they could do nothing, which is such a great phrase and a great way of living it. But and so he appointed 3 other trustees who were younger than his kids, because this money may well outlive even them.
Well, that's the law of compound interest is the thing that interests me the most. He's given away $60 billion.
It's growing too fast. His fortune is growing too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice problem.
I want to have these problems.
Yes. We all.
Tease will be next.
Next on Squawk Pod, we're talking America's health with former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He served under Donald Trump in his first administration, and he says RFK Jr. at the helm of Health and Human Services is deadly serious.
They could disband ACIP, the advisory committee to the CDC, and issue new recommendations that are non-binding to states, giving states cover to move away from the childhood immunization schedule. They could frustrate the Vaccines for Children's Fund, which vaccinates 50% of all kids in the country.
Welcome back to Squawk Pod from CNBC. Today with Becky Quick, Robert Frank, and Steve Liesman. Here's Robert.
Shares of Applied Therapeutics are plunging after the FDA declined to approve its drug to treat a rare genetic metabolic disease. It was set to be the company's first commercial product. The FDA's letter to the company said the marketing application for the drug could not be approved in its current form due to certain deficiencies. Applied Therapeutics is reviewing that feedback and plans to immediately request a meeting to discuss requirements for resubmission.
There has been a lot of big news in healthcare over the last few days. President Joe Biden proposing expanding Medicare and Medicaid to cover obesity drugs. That's a move that could impact millions of Americans. Meantime, President-elect Donald Trump has made all of his picks for the health-related team. And joining us right now to talk about all of this and what it means to the sector is Dr. Scott Gottlieb. Of course, he is the former FDA commissioner under the last Trump administration. He's also a CNBC contributor. And Scott, you're still a board member at Pfizer as well?
That's right.
Okay, and a board member at Pfizer. Let's jump into this, and why don't we start with the incoming administration's choices? Because there's been a lot of consternation, a lot of people who have said, wait a second, with RFK Jr. heading things up. What do you say as somebody who served in the last Trump administration?
Yeah, look, well, I have deep concerns about Kennedy's stated intentions to roll back core public health protections, particularly as it relates to childhood vaccines. He's brought in a very experienced team, a lot of lawyers from the Children's Defense Fund, which is his anti-vax organization. These guys are capable. I think they're deadly serious. They've been very clear about their intentions. And I think sometimes you have to take people at their word. And just to sort of level set where we are right now, we had 5,000 cases of pertussis last year. We're going to have 30,000 cases this year. Pregnant women, for the first time in a very long time, now need to think about pertussis as a risk during pregnancy. And if you look at vaccination rates for MMR, there's states that really are at the tipping point in terms of reduced vaccination rates. Herd immunity is achieved at a level of about 95% coverage. If you look at Idaho, it's at 79%. You look at Alaska and Wisconsin, 84%, Minnesota, 87%, Florida, Colorado, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Utah at 88%. When I was at FDA in 2018, 2019, all those states were in the low 90s. If we lose another 5%, we're going to be in a position where we see distributed outbreaks of measles, and that could easily happen in the next few years.
MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, pertussis is whooping cough?
Whooping cough.
So you're a physician. What do you worry about? What do you see?
Well, what I worry about is that we're at a tipping point where we're going to start to see epidemics of diseases that have long been vanquished. And God forbid we see polio reemerge in this country. This could happen in the next 4 years, especially with MMR. The measles vaccination rates have dipped to a point where we're at a tipping point right now. Another 5% down and we'll be there.
So you're saying people are going to die because of this?
No, but you warned about this. When you were at the FDA, you said because of vaccine hesitancy in this country, because of concerns about the COVID vaccine, you worried about what that would mean for all of these other related diseases and the vaccines that we have. Well, which vaccines should we be getting, which should we not? Because RFK Jr. has softened his stance. If you go back and look at what he said back to 2013, he talked about how vaccinating children and trying to cover up any problems from it he likened it to abuse by the Catholic Church, sexual abuse of children. He said that what the CDC was doing in 2019 with COVID vaccines was vaccine. He's talked about jailing vaccine scientists in the past. Now he sounds a little less strident in some of the comments that he's making, but you don't believe his
Well, I don't think he's less strident. Look, this is a post-COVID environment, no question about it. And I was against the mandates. We talked about this on this show. I was against the COVID vaccine mandates because I worried that it would breed vaccine hesitancy. I think what you're seeing now is people coming into the political spectrum preying on that. And they're deadly serious about the policies they're going to implement. So what could RFK do? And he's committed to this. You know, he's committed decades of his life to this. He's not going to back away. They could disband ACIP, the advisory committee to the CDC, and issue new recommendations that are non-binding to states, giving states cover to move away from the childhood immunization schedule. They could frustrate the Vaccines for Children's Fund, which vaccinates 50% of all kids in the country. Basically, for example, tying states that want to use that money to vaccinate kids to certain reporting requirements, like reporting on immigration status or religious status for children. Those are easy things they could do administratively, and that would make it very hard for states to take the money. I'm not laying out their roadmap. They know their roadmap, and this is their roadmap. I've been in policy. I know what these agencies can do, and I know what they intend to do. These are very serious people. He is smart, and his team is very capable around him.
So who have you spoken with in the Trump administration at this point, or in the incoming administration? You are somebody, again, who served in a Trump administration. What have you had to say to them about these
Well, look,
things?
they know my views. I've been clear about them. I've had certain conversations. I talked to President Trump about vaccines in my first term. I don't think that these policy efforts reflect his views as well. I don't think the president wants to see a resurgence of measles, wants to see a resurgence of whooping cough in his country. God forbid we have cases of polio in this country. He does not want to see that. I think he understood the importance of the childhood immunization schedule. I'm not so sure that people really understand how Kennedy's intentions are going to translate into policy and how serious he is. There was an article recently where one of his confidants, Del Bigtree, who's going to be probably brought into HHS, said, you know, he didn't get inside the castle to forego his long-held beliefs. They're going to follow through on these.
What do you think of Jim O'Neill? the HHS?
Excuse me?
What do you think of Jim O'Neill, who's been appointed to HHS?
Yeah, I don't know Jim well. He was there when I was there. I think Marty is a good pick at FDA. Marty Makary at FDA. I have confidence in him. I do think Oz can be a transformative pick at CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. If you think about today's senior citizens, they grew up watching him. I think if he plays an external role in that
doing
agency,
what will he do? What does he want to do?
Well, look, I don't think he's going to sit over meetings all day figuring out, Part B injectable drug conversions and the minutia of that organization. I think he's probably going to play more of an outside game trying to lead a health and wellness initiative for American seniors. I think he could be very good at that. So there are some qualified, very capable picks
Dr.
here.
Oz and Dr. Makary, by the way, practicing physicians who have both, I know people who they have both treated in their past lives as physician. These are serious people, too.
I know Marty, and he's a good physician and a really good thing.
Dr. Gottlieb, RFK has to be confirmed, right? Are you urging Republican senators to not confirm him?
Look, I think that there's skepticism in the Republican caucus, more than I think the press is reporting right now. There's going to be ag state senators that are concerned about his impact on food prices. There's going to be principled pro-lifers who are concerned about his positions on abortion. And there's going to be a number of public health-minded senators who have deep concerns about his position on vaccines.
If you were talking to a Republican senator, would you say that the appointment of RFK could cost lives in this country?
I think if RFK follows through on his intentions, and I believe he will, and I believe he can, it will cost lives in this country. You're going to see measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination rates go down. And like I said, if we lose another 5%, which could happen in the next year or two, we will see large measles outbreaks. For every 1,000 cases of measles that occur in children, there will be one death. And we are not good in this country at diagnosing and treating measles. If you look at the outbreak in Ohio, 30% of the kids were hospitalized. You look at the outbreak in Minnesota, 20% were hospitalized because we don't diagnose it quickly because doctors
Have we lost the ability to do it?
We lost the ability to diagnose it because doctors aren't accustomed to seeing it, and we don't know how to manage it in the healthcare system.
And by the way, if you have a new child, that child can't get vaccinated until what, age 2 or something?
That's right.
And
they're very vulnerable. And remember, maternal transmission of measles, congenital measles, causes serious consequences in pregnancy. So, adults and women are going to have to think about, do I get a booster? Pertussis is certainly something people need to think about right now. Like I said, there's outbreaks in multiple states, and that's only going to get worse.
I worried about measles with my infants because they're not immune for a while. If you have older kids who are in the schools, if there's an outbreak or anything that happens there, you can't protect these children, even if you're staying at home with them all the time.
And remember, the CDC appointee is someone who's a very committed anti-vaxxer, and I don't say that in a pejorative way. I think he would own that label very proudly. He was a congressman when I was at FDA in the early 2000s. He sponsored multiple bills to withdraw the current MMR vaccine. He sponsored bills to do away with the liability protection that allows companies to bring these vaccines onto the market. He forced FDA to reformulate the existing MMR vaccine to take some of the preservatives out that we use, which ultimately led to an increase in cost of those vaccines and probably reduced vaccination rates. So he is very committed to this, too.
Scott, people will look at this who are on that side of things and say, of course, that's what Gottlieb says because he's on the board of Pfizer and they're a big vaccine machine. Well,
we don't make the pediatric vaccines, so Pfizer's not in that market. This market is GlaxoSmithKline, Merck, Sanofi. There are other companies doing this.
You mentioned President Trump doesn't support a lot of these policies, or at least you don't think he does. What are the guardrails, whether it's Congress, whether it's other cabinet members, that could prevent all of these from happening to the degree that let's say RFK Jr.
Well, look, I don't think there are guardrails, and I don't want to speak for the president. I think I understand his ethos, and I think he has a strong public health ethic as well as the people around him. So I don't think they fully understand how Kennedy's going to translate his actions into policy. I think some in Congress right now who are deeply skeptical think that they can manage this through things like appropriations riders. That's not going to be successful because, like I said, RFK can go in there with a stroke of a pen, disband ACIP, reconstitute it with like-minded people, issue a whole new bunch of recommendations. He can frustrate the ability to take the money from the Vaccine for Children's Fund, which would impede states' abilities to vaccinate children. There's a lot of things that they could do day one very easily, administratively, And I don't think there's a thing Congress can do. And that is dependent upon Congress getting bills through on appropriations bills that would actually tie the hands of CDC and Kennedy. And I'm not sure the will in Congress is there to do that.
Have you spoken with the individual senators about this?
I've had conversations, and I've raised my concerns, and I'll continue to raise my concerns.
Okay. Well, Dr. Gottlieb, thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
Still to come on Squawk Pod. Black Friday takes TikTok and Instagram and Snap. We talk to social media and marketing expert Gary Vaynerchuk.
10 years ago, I used to go on this program and others and talk about influencers are gonna make money, and I got a little, and now it's a multi-billion-dollar economy.
Gary V explains how influencers are making their mark this shopping season, right after this. This is Squawk Pod.
You are watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Becky Quick along with Steve Liesman and Robert Frank. Joe and Andrew are both off today. And Black Friday shoppers are coming out early searching for bargains. The door is just opening at the Mall of America. That is the nation's largest shopping center in Bloomington, Minnesota. It's just outside Minneapolis. The National Retail Federation predicts nearly 132 million people, or 72% of Americans, will actually shop today in store and or online.
But there's no stampeding and no trampling and no...
You know, they stopped doing that for a while. It used to be Walmart that would do it, but there were problems.
That was
well, it was
for
not.
sale,
There were actually big problems.
Yeah.
At first, it was stampeding issues that we had problems with, and then it was the issue of not wanting to make your workers work on Thanksgiving and come through. And that was something during the COVID pandemic that they really reached out to the workers who were on the front lines all the time when everybody else was working from home. That's when things changed.
And now you have a nation of disappointed TV producers right now that are looking for the video.
Hey, well,
and no
Santa.
video. Come on, people.
Santa, there's some people piling in here. Social media shopping is booming this Black Friday, with millions on social media buying new products and brands. And now live shopping events are drawing real-time sales and exclusive deals. Joining us right now is Gary Vaynerchuk, VaynerX chairman. And Gary, welcome. It's great to see you this morning.
Great to see all of you.
So what's a live event? Is this different than QVC shopping?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, you know, when this is the year, I mean, next year, this is gonna be a huge topic for everybody who watches this program, and you'll be talking about this. It really is QVC on social, other than the way the algorithms work in social now. When a person or a company goes live, they're gonna find audiences. The algo's gonna bring it to you. So obviously, QVC home shopping that were in the 80s, the consumer had to click and go there. The fact that I'm gonna be in my feed and then boom, there's a live shopping event, and boom, the algo knows that I like t-shirts or vitamins or beauty, and I get it, that's gonna be a big factor.
Can I just say, like, you're gonna have to sell me on the live events, because I already buy a lot of stuff on Instagram where it's a pretty effective ad. It's flashy, it shows me how it works. The video makes me think, yeah, I want this. I don't know if I want somebody talking at me saying, hey, buy this product, you've got this much time to do that. You know, sell me on this. Why do I need something more than what's already selling me on Instagram?
Well, I don't really want to sell you. It's been sold, meaning there are unbelievable amounts of people making over $1 million a month already on TikTok live shopping. So it's not about, you know, convincing, it's about the conviction.
Those are vendors. Those are essentially companies selling $1 million.
They're influencers.
You're saying influencers are making $1 million a month?
Yes and yes, right? So
they have a product.
Yes, as well to that.
And hawking a product.
Yes, to that as well. This is going to be massive. Again, this is such a global platform. This has been going on for a decade in China. I've
watched the stuff in China.
Right? I've literally been waiting for 10 years for this. Like, there's videos of me in 2015 saying, this is coming.
It seems a little hokier than some of the flashy ads I already get that are really
I think you'll
well
appreciate this. Some print, like, let's talk about it historically. What you're talking about is a print ad, in essence. Right. It just happens to be in
because
social.
the video
is video? Fine.
The video sells me.
Great.
Because it usually shows me something about the product I want.
That's video, so that's a commercial.
Yeah.
If it's an image, that's print. And all this is QVC. It works. I can speak for myself. I have a Pokemon-like brand called VFriends. We're doing live social shopping. I'm doing 7 hours, ironically, today about it.
You're going to be on for 7 hours?
I'm going to be on from 12 to 7 today on Whatnot, which is one of the platforms that's emerging. And 3 Mondays ago, we sold $40,000 worth of t-shirts in 2 hours.
Wow.
That if I, and we're good at this, did my best social media non-live shopping advertising, we would have sold $3,000 worth.
Okay, well, I'm convinced by numbers like that.
Yeah.
We just did a shot from the mall in Paramus.
I saw.
Not a whole lot of people there. Is this why?
Well, it's 7:30 in the morning. Honestly, I was back there. I was like, that's a solid amount of people.
No, but we used to do, like I've been doing this for a long time. It used to be the openings at 6 a.m., at 7 a.m., at 8 a.m.
Target
It was insane. Break down the doors.
Is there an investor play on this? Is there a way? And this is changing retail, but is this taken away from Target? Does it take it away from Walmart?
I'm glad you brought this up. The reason I'm so excited to be here is every retail, every CPG. This is going to be over the next decade a consumer packaged good. So if you're Procter, if you're PepsiCo, I mean, this is going to be a major deal because don't forget, we have major channel conflict wars between the packaged good companies and the retailers. And the Amazons and the Walmarts are taking media dollars now away from social. The overall impact to consumable products and to retail of this dynamic and social shopping, and now the social networks taking an 8% rake on every transaction.
Really?
I heard 6 in some cases.
8%?
Some, but 8% and then a 3% process fee. But again, this is also going to hit Main Street. If you're a normal store in a small town in Jersey or California on Wednesday at 3 p.m., there is nothing going on. To your point, the retail traffic is changing. The fact that you can turn your little boutique into a studio now and go live shopping.
Entrepreneurs can do this too. If you're a small business owner, you can get right out there.
10 years ago, I used to go on this program and others and talk about influencers going to make money, and I got a little, and now it's a multi-billion-dollar economy.
Does it undermine
shopping
big retailers? Does it undermine that?
Yeah, I would argue that live social shopping is the only potential thing that Amazon should be worrying about in their domination. That's how big this could be.
That's really amazing. And I guess the who this is disrupting is traditional media, who might have been pitching you these ads before.
Yes, but it's also going to disrupt retail. Like this is another, don't forget, attention ultimately is the ultimate asset. These social platforms have the attention. We're going to now shop in that environment. That's going to affect media, that's going to affect retail, and that's going to affect the product service industry.
Do the social media companies make money on this?
Yes.
So
again, they make 8%.
Good for Twitter and good for maybe some of these other companies.
There's no shot in 2025. I can't wait to come back in 6 to 12 months when this happens. There's no shot that Meta, TikTok, YouTube, Google are not going to be yelling and screaming about this. X will have this. This is too big. It's happened.
Who's the best at it so far?
TikTok. And it's not even
Tell
close.
us the name of an influencer or two that you think have made a ton of money from this or are leading this.
You know, it's funny.
And what do they do to be so in front?
So what I'm paying attention to more is the brand. So Mary Ruth Organics is a brand that's really doing this well.
Sell?
They're selling their vitamins. It's kind of a modern vitamin company. You saw, it was funny, I was talking to Mona and Dustin in the back. You showed the top 3 things that we're selling, right? T-shirts, vitamins, and beauty. And I looked at them and said, all 3 categories that are crushing right now on live social shopping. Abercrombie and Fitch. I don't know if you're paying attention that they're getting a reboot. And then there's also, I think you guys covered this on, I don't know if specifically you, but Chili's, the restaurant company, there was one TikTok, this is not live social shopping, this is just social. One TikTok that went viral that represented 40% of its Q3 growth. One TikTok that went viral. It was a triple cheese quesadilla. It wasn't even a limited time offer. Again, mango gummies, private label mango gummies from Walgreens, the ocean spray thing that was well covered. I'm telling you.
I have to go, but I have to make a point.
Please.
Which is that one of the, what do you call it, postmortems on the election?
Yes.
Was that the Trump administration understood TikTok in a way that Biden, the Trump campaign in a way that Biden didn't. And I think what you're talking about now is investors need to understand it.
The battleground on social will impact every single stock on the market.
Gary, really fascinating. Thank you for coming in today. Great to see you.
That's the pod for today. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernan, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. To get the smartest takes and analysis from our TV show right into your ears, follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. We'll meet you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.